Yo, so guys, welcome back to another video. This is a reaction to This is a reaction to Is America Doomed at the World Cup by a channel named BMO Owners. I don't know how to say it, but I swear this guy used to do other content. Actually, I've seen him post. He posts like he explains American sports to British people or people around the world, and then vice versa, like football to Americans and stuff. I swear he used to do FIFA videos. I just feel like I know this guy. He did. That means changed up his content a lot. And yeah, that's how I know him. He always has Ted Lasso in his pictures. But yeah, is America doomed at the World Cup? I don't know why it's at 7 minutes in, because I've not seen that. Yeah, the World Cup is now, at this point, the US have qualified, England qualified. So you've not played in the last 16 yet, and I'm going to post this before. My predictions for that, I'm not going to lie, I think I might stream it as well, because, wait, what day do the games go on? Are England and the US playing the same day? Because if they are, I might watch both games in a row and just stream it on my YouTube. Because I streamed the England, the US game, and that was a load of fun, man. It's not on the same day, but I can still stream it. It's going to be early. What time's that in the US? That's early, man. That's like 11 a.m. on the West Coast and the East Coast. No, sorry, on the East Coast and on the West Coast. God damn, that's early. That's like, what, 8 in the morning? Maybe earlier than that. But yeah. I might stream that. Maybe people want me to, maybe not. We'll see. But yeah, I'm just talking a lot at this point. But you've just qualified. And the predictions for that game, you know what? I don't think the Netherlands have been as good as this at this World Cup as their sort of results have shown. They're a bit stale. And I could see like a 1-0 or like a 0-0 draw going to penalties, because the Netherlands love going to penalties at World Cups. So I'm going to predict 2-1 US. I'm only saying that because the Netherlands, they really don't. Then I just don't think they're as good as they've been playing. They've been getting some results here and there, and I just think they've been getting a bit lucky. But at the same time, they've got some very good players, so they could easily win. It's a bit of a wild card prediction, and I know it probably won't happen. But I genuinely think the US, with the way they play, they could do something against them. But we're going to jump into this reaction anyway. I'm talking a lot, and yeah, links are in the description to my Patreon if you want to see some more videos of mine. And let's just jump into this video. I guess this is the whole history of the US at the World Cup, right? I mean, we'll see.
The World Cup, a tournament to determine which country is the best at soccer. Or as most of the rest of the world strangely call it, football. And while the NFL, NBA, and baseball are all bigger sports in the US, to every other country outside of America, there's no bigger sporting event than the World Cup. Although, historically, only Europeans and South American teams ever won the World Cup, so really it should be called the Colonized versus the Colonizer Cup. But that's not what this video is about. Today, I'm asking the big question, and that is, why can't America, a country who has historically dominated the leaderboards at the Olympics and has produced some of the greatest athletes of all time, why is it that we have never even gotten close to winning a World Cup?
Wasn't the closest in 1930? I saw a Twitter post about the 1930 World Cup, and apparently I read it, and it is the funniest thing you'll see about the World Cup. So many things went wrong. I swear the American manager in the 1930 World Cup, like, nearly he knocked himself out from like doing something. I don't remember what it was, but some matches, crazy things happened. And isn't it their best finish in that World Cup as well? I think it might be.
Failure, heartbreak, losing to Ivan Drago. That is what it has felt like to be an American soccer fan for the past 20 years. Well, at least on the men's side. Because the women's team, I mean, they fucking dominate. They win everything, bro. And God bless those lesbians for it. And I can say that because I'm dating a lesbian. Wait, what? Anyway, I digress. How can our women win every international trophy in existence while our men's team couldn't even qualify for the World Cup 4 years ago while being in CONCACAF, one of the weakest soccer regions in the world? Are the US men's national team just doomed to suck forever? Well, to get to the bottom of that answer, we have to look back at our past and see what has been the trajectory of this team over the years. But first, like FIFA, I gotta pay some bills. Here's your
getting his money. He's getting his money. You know what? What's his ad? I'm gonna see his ad and just give him some love for it. Oh, he's got, what is it? Is this a wallet or is this for phones? I mean, you use this code to get it. Yeah, it's like, wait, what is it? I want to just see what it is, just so I can.
Son, this baby will give you a 3-month charge, and even lets you ring it when you can't find it at home. And I know you've wasted so much of your life looking for your wallet. I know I have.
Damn. I literally just bought a wallet as well. I've been looking for wallets, so it would have been useful to see this beforehand, but come on, man. Let's go. He's getting his money. You'll love to see it.
From the video, now, back to the show. Now let's start by playing a little game. No cheating, okay? No cheating. Just Off the top of your head, what do you think is the highest placement of a U.S. men's national team at a World Cup?
I know. It was third place in 1930, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I
Give
think
me
it
a
was
second.
1930.
All right, pencils down. The answer surprised me when I looked it up. It's actually third place. Pretty
Come on.
good, right? And you might be wondering, wait, I don't remember this happening. As you don't remember it, that's because if you're watching this, most likely you weren't alive when it happened. Because the U.S. men's national team had their highest finish ever at the very first World Cup ever. Yes, you heard
Yep.
that right. All the way back in 1930, the U.S. came in third place. Now, big caveat, there were only 13 teams in the inaugural World Cup. You compare that to the 32
There was supposed to be 14 teams, wasn't there? This is what I saw, and Egypt didn't make it. in
of the
end.
modern era, and it's, a little bit less impressive. And you also have to state that, most European nations actually refused to play in this initial World Cup because the host nation was Uruguay. And remember, this is 1930. This was still a time where ships were the main mode of international travel. But third place is third place, baby. And other random trivia facts, first country to ever win a game at a World Cup was, you guessed it, America.
Oh, shit.
Also, first player to ever score a hat trick at a World Cup, also American, one Bert Potnode from River Falls, Massachusetts. They would eventually lose to Argentina 6-1 in the semifinal, but gathered enough points to finish third, which still to this day is the only podium finish by a country not from Europe or South America. I'm telling you, man.
What? This is the only podium finish from a team outside of Europe and South America. That is insane.
The World Cup historically is just an anime tournament arc with Europe and South America as the main characters.
I mean, I knew it was dominance, but that is baffled me, especially when you see the sort of the love for the sport around the world. Like, I really hope there's an African team or an Asian team, man. I would love. I mean, I can't really say Senegal now because Senegal are playing England, and I predicted them to do really well. Obviously, they had an injury to their best player, but Japan are going to probably go out. When I post this, I'm going to know whether they're out or not. Before this video is out, when I'm recording it, the Japan game hasn't happened, but they could have gone through until they bottled it. I just want to see the underdog sort of nations, continents doing bits, man. It would be so sick to see.
And everyone else is just that one side character that you get just enough story to care about, but you know they're going to lose because Naruto has to become Hokage. I'm sorry, I watch anime. But still, America at the very first World Cup came in higher than powerhouse countries like France and even Brazil. Now, there is this
Got right.
nasty myth that the only reason why Americans finished third was because they had a bunch of professional British players as ringers. And this is simply not true. In fact, they only had one player who had played professionally in Britain, and that was only in the second division. This team were proper, homegrown boys that were just plain good at footy. So to say that America has always been trash at soccer is factually incorrect. Now, at the next World Cup, they were blown out of the group stages. And then in 1938, they withdrew due to a FIFA corruption scandal. Yep, never changed,
What a
FIFA.
surprise.
Never changed. And after that, this little thing called World War II happened. So there were no World Cups until 1950. And that's where the U.S. men's national team not only qualified,
They shocked England, didn't they? This is the World Cup.
but shocked the world. And what is widely considered the biggest upset in international football history, the U.S. men's national team beat tournament favorites England 1-0. And this was considered insane, given that the same English side had just beaten a best-of-the-rest European all-star team 6-1 in the lead-up to this World Cup.
Bruh.
And thus, this was the biggest upset that America has ever achieved versus England since 1783. So if you're counting as far as the first couple of World Cups go, America, we're doing pretty good. But then, let me extend the view to modern day, and you'll see this. Yep, your next...
They didn't qualify for... What? They didn't qualify for 40 years. They weren't in the World Cup for 40 years. Wait, what the hell?
Next question is, what the fuck happened here? Because your eyes do not deceive you. That is a 40-year gap in between World Cup appearances. What exactly sent the U.S. men's national team into the shadow realm for the next 4 decades? Well, there are a myriad of reasons here. First and foremost is probably the rise in popularity of football Americano and other sports in the States after World War II. Combine that with the collapse of the major soccer leagues in America, and then you sprinkled in some good old-fashioned American xenophobia, labeling the sport a game played by foreigners, and this delightful wombo combo pushed
You
soccer...
still get that sort of stuff, man. You still get people commenting, oh, what a shit sport or whatever. I just ignore. When I see comments like that, I'm just like, you know what? You have your fun. I mean, I like sports and people who just comment random stuff. People will do it around any country. The British people will do it about American sports. Americans will do it about this. Just some people just don't like to even give any sports a chance. You know, it's just a bit like how some people are. It's just how it
They're
is.
into obscurity in America for half a century. And remember, this is long before the internet. As far as we were concerned, sports outside of America didn't exist. It wasn't until the 1970s with the rise of the National American Soccer League.
When you had those penalty kicks, didn't you? The penalties were so funny in this. Like did they run from the halfway line or something?
AKA nasal. Or is it Nassel? It's a tragic name, I know. But this new professional soccer league would finally reignite interest in soccer in America once
Pele,
again. Nasel
Cruyff.
was in many ways a precursor to the
Pele, Cruyff, George Best. But you had like the biggest names in this league, to be fair.
MLS, with many of the world's best footballers at the time opting to join the American League to see out the twilights of their careers. Names like George Best, Johan Cruyff, Franz Beckenbauer, Eusebio, and even the GOAT,
Madness.
Pele himself. Yeah, basically any of the older icon cards you've seen in FIFA, they were probably playing in Nasal during the 70s and 80s. It was the biggest boon to the sport the country had ever seen, and with it came the rebirth of the U.S. men's national team. In fact, in an attempt to turn the U.S. into an international soccer superpower, a scheme was hatched, and it was a stupid one. The idea was they added the actual U.S. men's national team as one of the teams competing in the league. And bro, could
What? Wait, is that true? This is actually blowing my mind.
you
man.
imagine? Could you imagine if this happened in modern day? Like if the Dream Team was added into the NBA? That would be wild. But unfortunately, this did not work out because due to many of the national team players opting to play for their club sides, this experiment failed horribly. With next to no continuity, the U.S. men's national team finished bottom of the league and were moved the next year. But at least the U.S. men's national team was back up and running, and in the qualification for the 1986 World Cup. On the final game, they just needed a draw against Costa Rica to make it to their first World Cup since 1950. So naturally, they choked it. Yep, they lost 1-0 to an inferior opponent to miss out on going back to the big dance. And this would sadly seem to be the start of an American tradition. More on that later.
I didn't realize just how down bad American football sport, like football, really was. Like, or the US football team really was. I knew like they weren't maybe as good, but because of how they are now, they're a decent level team. I mean, they failed recently, but in general, they're like a decent level team. They will like qualify from the group stage and stuff. They consistently make the World Cup. Didn't realize how down bad they really were at this point.
But with this disappointment, we would see a fall again of domestic interest in soccer. Nasal would lose momentum and eventually folded. So once again, American players had no domestic league to develop in. By the late 80s, the NBA, baseball, and NFL were the main sports showcase to American audiences and pretty much where all the big money athletes were playing. There simply was no pipeline or interest in developing American soccer players. But then, a stroke of luck happened. In 1988, FIFA would name the US as the host nation for the 1994 World Cup. And this would be the spark that would give us the US men's national team we know today, as the 1994 World Cup was a smashing success in the States. It still holds multiple records for the largest attendances of any World Cup in history, demonstrating that Americans did have an appetite for soccer if given the right incentive. The USA as hosts auto-qualified for the World Cup and made it out of the group stages before bowing out in the round of 16 to eventual champions Brazil. A match that was watched by over 11 million people in the US alone. The popularity of the 1994 World Cup would spawn Major League Soccer, aka the MLS, with the goal to once again foster domestic talent and develop US soccer. And with renewed interest, the US men's national team would qualify for the 1998 World Cup, where they would get absolutely destroyed in the group stages, losing all three other matches and finishing 32
To be fair, they got their revenge in Iran, didn't they?
out of 32. It was a complete shit show. But, to be expected, this form of the U.S. men's national team had realistically only existed for about 8 years. But 40 years later, in 2002, we would see the greatest U.S. men's national team in modern history. Fresh off of a Gold Cup win, the U.S. would open the 2002 World Cup with a shock domination up against tournament favorites Portugal. And from that point on, they never looked back. They won the group and met their arch rivals Mexico in the round of 16, where they put Eltree to the sword with a beautiful running Landon Donovan header to make it 2-0. And that's how the game would end, setting up an improbable quarterfinal against perennial powerhouses, Germany. But this U.S. team never played scared, taking it to the crowds. Landon Donovan would have multiple excellent chances early on. And if not for the German legend Oliver Kahn being one of the greatest keepers in history and a controversial missed handball call, the USA could have actually won this match. But alas, a Michael Ballack header was enough to take the Germans past the American.
They were that close to getting to the semis. And I mean, you're against Germany, and did they win the World Cup? Did they get to the World Cup final this year? I don't know. But you're nearly beating Germany. That's saying something, right?
And this is the great what if of U.S. men's national team history. What if they had beaten Germany? Because South Korea was waiting for them in the next round. And that was a very winnable match. If they could have gotten past South Korea, that would mean that the U.S. men's national team could have found themselves in their first World Cup final ever. Now on the other side of that final would have been an all-time Brazilian team, which features the likes of Fat Ronaldo, Ronaldinho, Roberto Carlos, Kaká, Cafu. Literally half of their starting 11 has icon cards in front, so yeah, they're definitely losing that one, but still, a World Cup final appearance could have taken soccer in America to a different stratosphere. So how did the U.S. men's national team follow up their greatest World Cup performance since World War II? Well, 4 years later, in 2006, they sucked dick. Yeah, all the hype and Landon Donovan in his prime gave us a 3-0 loss to the Czech Republic, 1-1 draw to Italy, and a 2-1 loss to Ghana. Remember them for later. But needless to say, this was an embarrassing exit considering how well they did 4 years prior. 1 step forward, 2 steps back is the legacy of American soccer. But then, 2 big things would happen to American soccer during this time. The first was through the strands of fate. A mother from Ghana won the green card lottery and immigrated to the US. And because of this, America was able to import a young athlete.
The biggest myth in football, man. This guy was supposed to be the one. What's happened to him? Isn't he like playing like the 5th division in the US now?
Who many had hyped as the next Pele. Hi, my name is Freddie Adu. Now to paint a picture, soccer at this time in America was seen as a sport that white moms would take their shithead kids to in order to tire them out while they got drunk on the sidelines. And while Landon Donovan was a good player, America didn't want just good in their athletes. They wanted the best. Remember, this is coming off the era of the Dream Team. Tom Brady had just won back-to-back Super Bowls. In order for soccer to become a thing in America, they needed not just a great player, they needed an all-world player. And that is what was promised to us in Freddie Adu. Because at the age of 12, he was destroying players nearly 3 times his age. Scouts that saw him play said it was like watching Picasso paint. And this wasn't just the American hype machine. No. All the big European clubs were throwing giant money contracts at this kid. His draft into the MLS in 2004 might have single-handedly kept the floundering league from going under. And Freddie Adu Mania swept the nation. He was on the cover of every sports magazine, a bajillion features on ESPN. And for my younger viewers, you might be...
This is before he even done anything as well, isn't it? Like he just got all this hype before he'd actually done anything in the game. Like it's insane. Like hyping up young sort of ballers, young footballers who are looking like they're going to be quality is a dangerous thing, man. It happens in a lot of countries, especially England. You're going to ruin a player's career before it's even started. You're giving him all this hype, all this fame, money, all this stuff before he's even made it. Like, what are you doing, man? But this happens a lot in sports. It's just how the world works now, you know?
Asking, wow, that's incredible. So why haven't I heard about them? Well, that's because he didn't turn into the next Pele. In fact, he wasn't even the next Landon Donovan. Nowhere even close. America was promised LeBron James, and we got Kwame Brown. And after the failure of 2006 and the eventual flop of Freddie Adu, Americans became kind of skeptical about U.S. men's soccer. I mean, who could blame them? They just kept on getting their hopes up, only to be hurt again. But then the second big thing happened for U.S. soccer that brought newfound legitimacy to the MLS. And that was the LA Galaxy signing the Galactico himself, David Beckham, away from Real Madrid. Bex, oh Bex. While he was past his prime, David Beckham was still the most recognizable name in footy at the time. And his introduction to the MLS was pure Hollywood. Many sporting outlets claimed that this would redefine soccer in America. And while he never quite revolutionized the MLS like was initially promised, he definitely gave the league and the sport a huge shot in the arm when it came to exposure and legitimizing the sport in America. Nowadays, the MLS is flourishing, and that was no doubt in part because of David Beckham's influence. So with renewed interest, the U.S. men's national team would qualify for the 2010 World Cup. We're in the group stages.
Again, for the second time, England didn't beat the US. I love this. The USA wins 1-1. Fucking hell, man. All because of Robert Green as well. The absolute joke, man.
They surprisingly drew England 1-1 due to a Robert Green howler, and then a cagey 2-2 draw up against Slovenia set up the most memorable moment in modern U.S. men's national team history. With elimination on the line, the U.S. men's national team poured men forward at the last gasp of the game. And after a shot from Clint Dempsey was denied by the Algerian keeper, a lucky rebound fell to the feet of Landon Donovan. And well...
Wait, this is how they qualified. I didn't even know this. In the last minute, because they had 2 draws, they would have went out. Oh, wow.
The rest is history. The infamous Go Go USA goal versus Algeria has YouTube reaction compilations in the millions, and to many young Americans watching, made them lifelong U.S. soccer fans. The U.S. would actually go on to win the group, but waiting for us in the round of 16 was an old friend, Ghana.
Oh, Ghana. Ghana love to play the U.S., don't they? They love to play the U.S. at the World Cup. They should have got to the final in this World Cup, man. Or even the semis at least. They got scammed.
Ghana. After an early goal from Ken Prince Boateng, America would tie it up through a Landon Donovan penalty. Regulation ended 1-1, where in extra time, a single ball over the top saw Asamoah Gyan beautifully chest the ball away from 2 American defenders and deliver a dagger to Yankee hearts. And I
Wow.
can collectively speak for the rest of America when I say, fuck Ghana. Fuck Ghana, bro. The year after this World Cup, Bob Bradley.
I love his dance
When I
here.
say, fuck Ghana. Fuck Ghana, bro. The year after this World Cup, Bob
Oh,
Bradley
mate.
would be removed as head coach and replaced with a figure that would change the course of U.S. soccer, Jurgen Klinsmann. He would reshape U.S. men's soccer into a more modern game, bringing in a lot of his experience from his time, the German national team, and the German league. A more modern game.
Is that
Bringing in a
Joachim Low? Wait, he looks like the ex-German manager. Who the hell is this guy? He looks like Joachim Low or whatever.
lot of his experience from his time, the German national team, and the German league, aka the Bundesliga. He also literally just brought a bunch of players from the Bundesliga, sniping away German-born players with American eligibility. And this upped the
Oh shit, that's kind of smart because that's Fabian
just
Johnson.
brought a
though.
bunch of players.
So you got what's this guy's name? He was the midfielder. Oh, God, I can't remember his name. He was the midfielder for the US. This is Chandler. He still plays, I think. Don't know this guy. And this is Fabian Johnson. Wait, so these are all German-born Americans? I guess like Brooks as well. So this is where I guess where it started, where the US started getting people who have American roots or American citizenship or just some sort of relation to America, and then they started getting them. This is why they've now got players that like Anthony Robinson, whose dad I searched up yesterday or 2 days ago, just random. I like looking at this stuff on Wikipedia, just random things. His dad was born in England and his mum was born in Jamaica, and his dad moved to the US and got citizenship, and then he moved back to the UK. And then that's how Anthony Robinson plays for the US. Just stuff like that. Like you have these ways to make these players play for these countries. It's smart. I mean, it's just like signing them as a football club, but it works. And he's now a starter for the US. So I mean, plus you see teams, countries around the world. You've got Ukraine. They'll sign a player from Brazil. He'll live in Ukraine for 2 years, and then he becomes a Ukrainian citizen, and then he's playing for the Ukrainian national team. It's a bit of a weird thing. I don't necessarily like that situation, but if it's allowed, why not do it?
Players from the Bundesliga.
But these are people who are actually, I guess, got full American roots and
Play
stuff.
German-born
which makes
players
sense.
with American eligibility. And this upped the quality of the team drastically. But the World Cup draw of 2014 was not kind to the Americans, as they were placed into the group of death, featuring the eventual tournament winners Germany, a sexy Cristiano Ronaldo-led Portugal, and our old nemesis, yeah, you guessed it,
But they made it through this time, didn't they?
Ghana. Fucking Ghana. But in their opening match, America finally got their revenge, beating Ghana 2-1. Fuck you, Ghana. And in their second match, they nearly shocked and awed Portugal. If not for the last-second assist by Ronaldo to make it 2-2.
What a goal.
And in their final match, they only lost to Germany 1-0, which was enough for them to advance in the group. And awaiting them in the round of 16 was Belgium's golden generation. And after a defensive 90 minutes where Tim Howard set a World Cup record for saves in a game, they
Oh, I remember that he's made like 14 saves, didn't
would
he?
eventually end up falling 2-1 in extra time. Although it could have been 2-2 if Wondolowski didn't miss the sitter. Damn. But the future looked bright for the men's team. Jurgen had the U.S. playing actual football instead of just chucking up the field and seeing what happens. He proved the U.S. men's national team could go toe-to-toe with the powerhouses of Europe and was recruiting excellent talent from Germany. And maybe, not so coincidentally, a brilliant youngster was starting to make his name for
LeBron
himself
James of soccer.
in Germany. His name was Christian Pulisic. And unlike Freddie Adu, he actually delivered on his promise, becoming a starlet over at Borussia Dortmund, the premier talent factory of Europe. But as is the legacy of U.S. soccer, it's one step forward and 2 steps back. And Jurgen Klinsmann was let go after a horrid showing, opening the 2018 World Cup qualification cycle with back-to-back losses. And while they would steady the ship on the final game of qualification, they just needed a draw up against Trinidad and Tobago to punch their ticket to Russia in 2018. But a
Madness,
freak
man.
goal, followed up by a wonder blast, would see them
Look at the stadium that they're playing in. Like, you can just, like, I don't know how good this Trinidad and Tobago team is, but they can't be anything better than like a League 2 team in England, right? And they beat the US. Like, is there even anyone in the
punch their
stadium?
ticket to Russia in 2018. But a freak goal, followed up by a wonder blast, would see them lose to Trinidad and Tobago 2-1, keeping the actual most promising American youngster we have ever produced from reaching his first World Cup. This loss is seen as the worst loss in U.S. men's national team history, and might have set the development of U.S. men's soccer back years. And simply put, it was fucking devastating. In the 4 years since, some things have gotten better, but some things have stayed the same. Leading up to this World Cup, on the final day of qualification, they needed just not to lose by 5 goals to Costa Rica to qualify. So they only lost by 2, and got in not on points, but on goal differential. but a couple things got better. The biggest difference between 4 years ago is that there are now multiple promising young players on the team. Christian Pulisic is now joined by the likes of Gio Reyna, Weston McKennie, while the US continued to snipe away talents like Serginho Dest and Yunus Musa from Europe. Recruitment has definitely been bolstered because this younger...
Mate, I would love Musa, man. I know he could play for like 4 teams. The US, Italy, Ghana, I think. And England. Oh, mate, he would be so good, man. I mean, Southgate wouldn't pick him, so he's probably made the right choice because he's going to play probably over 150 games for the US. He's just turned 20 and he's already played, what, like 20 games or something? And he is so good, man. He's exactly what England would need in their midfield. Oh, imagine him next to Bellingham. That is a joke.
Younger generation of American athletes are actually exposed to professional soccer, not just through the MLS or the World Cup every 4 years, but through the internet and sites like YouTube and apps like TikTok, and even the video game FIFA have all been heavy influences and factors in destigmatizing soccer as a foreigner sport in America over the last decade. And as I've spoken about, it's taken a lot of seeds to be planted, but now you can say that there is a fairly reliable pipeline of talent for Americans men's soccer, at least for the foreseeable future. So we go back to the core question, is America doomed to always suck at the World Cup? Well, I would argue, minus the 40-year gap where they didn't even qualify, I don't know if they've even really sucked at the World Cup. Yeah, they've had a couple of poor showings, but every country, even the powerhouses, have had some bad showings. Ask Germany how they've done at their past 2 major tournaments. And realistically, this modern iteration of the US men's national team is less than 30 years old. And while progress was slow in the beginning, the future looks brighter than ever for US men's soccer. And regardless of the results at this World Cup, the next World Cup in 2026 on home soil is going to be the true test of how far this program has really come. The culture around men's soccer in the US is growing with every new generation. We have built the infrastructure to create a strong national team program, and now have a pipeline of talent who are good enough to play in the best leagues in the world. The final question is, can we find the right coach to bring it all together? Because it's definitely not the guy we have now. But if we could find...
That's the American Southgate, no? People absolutely hate him.
that next Jurgen Klinsmann type, someone who could take this program to the next level, then we just might, see a US men's national team lift a World Cup in our lifetime. But then again, we'd have to get pretty lucky because, let's face it, powerhouse teams like the Netherlands and Portugal have never won the World Cup. So I'll make it a little bit more realistic here. I think that a World Cup finals appearance for the US men's national team is something quite achievable within the next 3 to 4 World Cup cycles. And I know there's this argument.
What do you say?
Something quite achievable. I think that a World Cup finals appearance for the US men's national team is something quite achievable within the next...
It's a big shout, but you got the World Cup in 4 years. That's probably the best chance, right? Because when you're home, it's just... When it's your home tournament, there's always that added help. Just from the crowd, you're just at home. You've just got more, I guess, emotion towards it. Every home team always does bits, other than obviously you've got terrible teams like Qatar and stuff. But if you're a good level team, it will just help you boost yourself to an even better level. But that's a big shout, a finals appearance. I mean, I'm not going to say it can't happen because the sporting structure in the US is probably the best in the world. And if there's more focus on football, then you don't know. It could happen. But that's a big shout, man. I mean, you've got England haven't been in a final for how long? Since we won the World Cup in 1966. Holland had been to a few, but they've never won it. Like, that's a big shout. But you know what? I respect it. He's made a bold prediction.
Next 3 to 4 World Cup cycles. And I know there's this argument that America might never win a World Cup or might never reach a World Cup final because all of their best athletes play in the NBA or the NFL. But I feel like this is kind of a shallow excuse. Because if you look at the average body type for someone who plays in the NBA, minus keepers and center backs, there's rarely any players in soccer that are over 6'2". Height is not nearly the advantage in soccer as it is in the NBA. And the same applies to the NFL. There are very few soccer players who are over 200 pounds. You simply need a different type of athlete. Christian Pulisic is 5'8" and 160 pounds. Messi is 5'6" and 140 pounds. I would argue that the bigger issue was showing young, promising American athletes that there was actually a path for them to become professional soccer players. And that is something that simply didn't exist in the American zeitgeist until recently. But now that we have proof of concept in players like Christian Pulisic, Gio Reyna, Weston McKennie, you sprinkle on top all the concerns about concussions and CTE in the NFL, then don't be so surprised that over the next decade, we might be seeing more and more young, promising Americans choose soccer as their sport of choice. And until then, I say, just enjoy this World Cup. This is the most promising and youngest squad the U.S. men's national team has produced ever. And listen, I don't know how far they're going to make it because their coach is kind of mid, and we kind of seriously lack the depth that a team like England or France enjoy. So that would probably be our next step in our national team program. But one step at a time, I guess. So yeah, are the U.S. men's national team doomed to always suck at the World Cup? I say, we're just getting started. And that is going to be it for this video. Thanks for watching.
I enjoyed this, man. This is a good... He came from this from a very, like... balanced point of view. He wasn't like biased towards the US. He wasn't biased against. He just seemed like he was actually just speaking facts, you know. And some people probably don't like it. I really enjoyed it though. This is a good watch, and it was an interesting way to learn about the history of the US in the World Cup. Never would I imagine, as a Nigerian, that among football rivals the US had, Ghana was one of them. When do Ghana play? They play tomorrow against Uruguay. I don't know who they have a bigger rivalry with. I don't know who Ghana have a bigger rivalry with, the US or Uruguay. It has to be Uruguay, right? But yeah, they just seem to be like a magnet towards each other. The US and Ghana just seem to just always match up in the World Cup, pretty much. USA and England draw is now officially sockball. I've had this in my chat, the live stream when I watched the game, man. We were dominated as well. The US should have won that. If only they had a bit more of a clinical attack and like shooters, and maybe they would have actually scored. But we were dominated that game. My favorite USMNT moment will forever be Tim Howard's 12 save game. Yeah, I do remember that. I don't remember the specific game, but I remember that him breaking the record and just going nuts. And obviously it was against Belgium, who were like, back then Belgium were one of the best teams in the world. So yeah, I remember seeing that. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this reaction, and yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments, and until next time, like, subscribe.